Welcome to episode 2, Streets and Scholars with Alex, Alonso, and FG. And man, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. So, what do you think so far? What's the reaction from episode 1? We're only 2 episodes in now.
Yeah, but I'm getting some good reactions, man.
Is that right?
They like it, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course, you're gonna have everybody have an opinion, so but we're getting some good remarks from people.
Yeah, I think that our largest reaction was on that Snoop Dogg, whether or not he went too far.
Oh, no doubt. I know that was the, you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, the Crips was on my head about it, but the thing about it is if they just really paid attention to what I was saying. I was just basically saying, if you're talking about the youth, talking about deterring them from crime, but I did have a question real fast before we get off that topic. If you watching the Super Bowl with your 10-year-old son, and when he throw up the 2 Crip songs, your 10-year-old son emulates him and throw up 2 Crip songs while y'all watching the game, I mean, what would you say to him?
Yeah, I'd have to pull him to the side and just let him know, don't take this serious.
Yeah.
To me, it's all theatrics. It's all
Right.
about corporations. It's all about branding.
Yeah.
It's all about catering to his base. And at the end of the day, it's all about money.
Yeah, no doubt, but that's all I was saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a lot of comments.
Hey, some people were mad at me that I was giving them a pass.
Yeah, he was also mad at you about talking about Mary J, man. You can't.
Hey, man, I got nothing negative to say about Mary J.
I like old Mary J.
She's the queen of hip hop soul.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into. Well, before we get into some of the topics that I wanted to talk to you about today, FG, I want to go through some fact checks from last week.
Let's do it.
And you were absolutely right. Joe Theismann did win a Super Bowl. He won Super Bowl 17. It was played on January 30th, 1983, and that was the strike-shortened season of 82.
Yeah.
And they beat the Miami Dolphins 27-17, and they only played 9 games that season.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we have these strike seasons, those championships aren't considered real championships.
Well, yeah, some people put an asterisk by him, But you know what? They also went on the very next season to go to the Super Bowl. But they got smashed by the Los Angeles Raiders. I mean, like 39. They got smashed.
So that would have been
84.
Is that right?
Yeah. Marcus Allen and them took it to him the very next year.
So that would have been here in L.A., right?
That was here in L.A.
Yeah, because they had already been in L.A. They left Oakland by that time, I believe.
Yeah, they were here in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay, and your boy John Riggins was the MVP of that Super Bowl. He rushed for 166 yards, which was, I think it was considered a record at the time, but that record has since been broken. But yeah, you was right about that. Joe Theismann did win. Odell Beckham, an update on him. He definitely tore his ACL. They're blaming it on the turf.
Yeah,
they are blaming it on the turf.
I mean, I watched it, and it was nothing but the turf. From my perspective, from what I saw. But I hope he can get his rehab going back and get back out there on that field. I mean, that's a devastating injury, but hopefully he can get back out there. Hopefully by next year, but they saying it may be longer than that.
Yeah, I don't think he is going to make the beginning of the season. In fact, this is a second ACL.
I know he was hurt before, but I didn't know what it was.
His first ACL was in 2020, and now he's got a second ACL in the same knee.
Same knee?
Same knee.
Ooh, that's ugly.
Yeah. So, hey, man, I wish for Odell Beckham for a speedy recovery.
Do you know how old he is?
No, I don't. I don't know his exact age, but
recovering
from one ACL is tough enough.
Yeah.
So this is his second one. Do you think he can bounce back?
It all depends. That's why I was asking how old is he, because sometimes when you get a little up in age, those injuries, they linger, and it's harder for them to, recover. But if and I know he's been in the league quite a few years, but he still may be recovered. These guys are strong athletes, man, and the willpower and determination that I see with him on the football field, if he got that same will and determination for rehab, hey, he might pull it off.
Well, he was born in November of 92, so that'll put him at 29.
29.
He'll be 30 this year.
Yeah.
So
that's a little up there from football years. So, but it's still doable.
Yeah, I remember Kobe tore his on the court. I think he was about 36, 37. And his was not a physical injury. He just moved a certain kind of way and boom, tore it.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough. I don't know if he'll be 100% ever, man.
Yeah, you're right.
2 ACLs actually it's the second ACL within 18 months because he got his in 2020.
I didn't know it was that close. You did say 2020.
2020. Yeah. So and a lot of his colleagues, a lot of other players in the NFL are starting to not want to play on the turf.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever just get rid of the turf?
You know what? Ever since they brung it in, because even when they brought it in, some teams kept grass. And it seemed like, I don't know if the NFL, mandated it or just, and then everybody went to turf. Is every team in the NFL turf?
That I don't know.
Okay, I think it's still a couple grass teams out there, but that turf or something didn't cause a lot of injuries, Alex.
Yeah. Well, it may have ended Odell Beckham's career. We'll find out. If we'll just hope for a speedy recovery. But man, 2 ACLs within an 18-month period, that's tough to come back from.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing, I remember we were talking about how many games were in the season, and I didn't know this, but they added an NFL game to the season starting 2021.
They had to, because when it was season 18, I'm like, how did it get? Game 18. I'm like, how did it get to game 18? And you only had one bye, so they had to add a 17th game.
Yeah, well, it's it used to be 16 games with a bye, so it was 17 weeks.
It was 17 weeks, yeah.
So now it's 18 weeks. So that means they added a game in 2021, which means now that it's an odd number of games. It's 17 games, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It's 17 games as of 2021, but it's an 18-week season.
Right.
I didn't even realize they added a game.
Well, you know what? I seen them when it said week 18, and it still didn't click in my mind that they added a game. But you would have had to, because you only get one bye week. Yeah, they slipped that one in on me. And
in order to make it to the Super Bowl, you have to win. Well, you have to play 21 games.
Yeah, that's
21 games. And that's 4 more than the 1972 Miami Dolphins when they went undefeated.
Right.
17-0 in 1972. Now you got to go 21-0. And the question is, in today's NFL, can a team go undefeated? Can you go 21-0?
You can't go 21-0, but I'm going to tell you this, what I do think. I think if a team went 18-0, they should be able to get that record from the Dolphins. That's what I do believe. They shouldn't have to go 21-0 in order to beat the record, even though I know it was an undefeated season.
Yeah.
But it should be some kind of something after we won 18 games that, if we went 18-0, it's up for argument. Just put it like that. It should be.
You're going to have to take that up with Don Shula.
Right. They going to fight they ain't going for it.
But it's been difficult to go 18-0, 19-0.
No, any of that.
Yeah. I think it's still amazing that Miami did it, even though it was 17 games.
No, it's a feat.
Yeah.
It's a feat.
I do think a team will be able to do it 21-0.
That's a lot of games. Well, see, that's the thing about it. You also, like you say, they played on grass back then. Now we factor in the turf with players getting hurt. These guys are bigger, stronger, and faster, so the hits are that much harder. Every other week a player is out with a concussion. That's why I don't think they can do it. It'll take a miracle to do it, because even back then when they had concussions, they didn't even notice it, and the guy got right back in the game or played the very next week. It wasn't no protocols or none of that. So, which the protocols are good for the NFL and the players, but you didn't have that back then. So you didn't have a star player like Aaron Donald having to sit out, or certain things like that. So I think those things will play a factor with people going full season without a loss.
Yeah, a lot of players were against the NFL changing the regular season from 16 to 17 games because of the injuries.
Yeah.
That's one more game that we got to deal with our health.
Yeah.
But the union made the deal too good to say no to, because they're getting more money.
Right.
What do you side on? Get more money and I'll go play another game, or no? I don't want to risk my health.
Well, the thing about it is, at some point, a lot of these guys are making millions of dollars. And I know the almighty dollar is what all athletes, they love the game as well, but they still want their money. But just to risk so much, and, it's a brutal sport, and I believe that it shouldn't be. just based on, the health issues, But, of course, we love to see more football. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Who's going to turn down another game, But even like the Pro Bowl now. I mean, they do no hitting in the Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? It really used to be like a real pretty much game where they, got physical. But, these, like I say, these guys are so big and strong that even one extra game is a lot on their body.
Well, the players were against it. This was all done by the NFL and the owners. And when I was reading this, I'm like, wow, you guys are really treating these players like they're your slaves.
Yeah, like they commodities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I know people are gonna get mad at that. I said use the word slaves because they're getting paid millions of dollars.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they did not want to play more games.
No, they did. And I seen the articles where we don't want to play another game. I seen the articles where guys hate to play on that Thursday game when they added the Thursday game. It was a lot of players against that, because you playing on Sunday, then your body haven't recovered and you have to come back and play on Thursday. So, but at the end of the day, like you say, these guys are signing up for this. They want to go there. This their dream. So what do?
I guess you got to play the game.
Got to play that game.
Run, nigga, run. I mean, that's really the way the NFL is treating them. That's the way I see it.
No doubt.
Okay. Last week we mentioned when we were talking about Snoop Dogg being cripped out during the Super Bowl halftime show. I recalled Serena Williams actually crip walked. It was actually during the Olympics when she won the gold medal when she crip walked.
Yeah, I thought it was another
It wasn't Wimbledon. It wasn't the U.S. Open. It was during the Olympics when she dusted Maria Sharapova.
Yeah, I remember Sharapova. She was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was around for a while, too. She was good. She gave Serena hell on a lot of those courts, because I used to always watch Serena. Serena her and Venus brought us into tennis,
I love Serena, actually.
Yeah. So I championed them every chance I got to watch them,
And what was funny is that when she was asked by the mainstream media, what were you doing? What was that dance? She really didn't want to explain what she was doing. I have a quote here that says, actually, there's a name, but I don't know if it's inappropriate. It's just a dance we do in California.
Right. But you know what, though? For me, I was more or less like, yeah, that's Serena. You know what I mean? Just to be honest with you, just based on, because we all know tennis is a sport not for African Americans. So to me, it was more or less like, she brought us in with her, basically. I'm not a Crip or nothing like that, but it's just when she did it, I was like, hey, get it, girl. You know what I mean? Like, shit.
Yeah, I was I don't remember how I felt back in 2012, but I know the way I feel now. I'm not offended or bothered by it, and I'm a huge Serena Williams fan. I actually think Serena Williams is a beautiful woman. A lot of people think she's too masculine or she's too big. I think she's fine.
Yeah.
I'm a big supporter of her, and we've never seen her crip walk since, though.
Yeah. Well, when you're in that big money, you got them big sponsors, and they find out what it is. It's all. But that lets me know when she at the house or she with her folks, she'll break it down. You know what I mean? That's what it did let me know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because you had to practice it a few times in order to know how to do it. You know what I mean?
And she did it really good.
Yeah. So that wasn't her first time. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Shit.
All right. We also touched on Eminem using the N-word last week, and let me just say I don't like saying the word nigga, and I said run nigga run because it's in context of the point I'm trying to make about the way the NFL owners treat the athletes. But in general, I don't like saying nigga, but if it's to make a point, I will say it. But Eminem did use the word in a 1993 tape that came out in 2003. So it took 10 years. Well, actually, Eminem, it didn't take 10 years. It only took about 3 or 4 years because Eminem blew up around 99. 99. So in 2003, this tape surfaced of him not only saying nigga, but he had a lyric in a song that said, all the girls I like to bone have big butts. No, they don't, because I don't like that nigga shit. I'm just here to make a bigger hit. And then he also said, black girls only want your money because they're dumb chicks. And I remember he took a lot of heat for this. He apologized profusely.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Benzino from The Source magazine is the one that really
put it out there.
Yeah, he pushed this back in 2003.
Yeah.
And to this day, I heard Benzino on Clubhouse literally about a week ago, and he was still pushing a line on Eminem. He's still bothered by what Eminem said. He still doesn't understand how everyone gave him a pass.
Swept it under the rug.
Yeah, but I think that was some crazy stuff Eminem said in the.
I never knew it. I never heard that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and it definitely. But see, that's the thing about it. You know, like we say with all, you know, people, they get to somewhere where they at, and it's something you said or something you did. That's where credibility comes in at. You know, and maybe he never thought he was gonna be big enough for nobody to hear it. I don't know, but I had never heard of this, and I never heard the song actually. But I mean, I definitely believe this was done, no doubt, and it do make you look at a person a little different. You know,
it does, because at least in the late 80s, in 1988 is when he said the black girl comment, and in 1993, 5 years later, is when he said the nigga comment. He didn't blow up until 98, 99. And like you said, he probably didn't know he was going to become as big as he became.
Right.
And it does let you know someone's at least their state of mind during 88 to 93.
No doubt.
Now, can a guy change? Sure. You know, a guy can change. But do we really know to what extent the change actually occurs? You know?
No doubt.
So just for those who were unaware, yeah, Eminem went in on black girls too. So, but last week when we talked about Joe Rogan using the word, we were talking about how the money, there's so much money behind him with that Spotify deal, $100 million. But guess what? It's actually a $200 million deal for 3 years.
Damn.
He has a $200 million deal for 3 years. So that means that he's making...
a lot.
Let's divide that by 3. Let's say, what's that? About $60-something million a year on his podcast deal. He's making more money per
Almost
year
70.
than a professional athlete.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything's going to happen to Joe Rogan. I really don't. And as you can see, Eminem is pretty much embraced by the black community to this day. Look at you know, he's on stage with Dre.
Right.
What do you think about, you know, when people have this type of history in there? Because check it out, you are here with me doing this podcast. You are now known because somebody had a bad history.
Right.
A bad history that some will have a difficult problem trying to forgive.
No doubt.
Trying to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
You know, I would say the issue with you is far more consequential than someone using the N-word, but nevertheless, they have a history.
Nah, no doubt, and you got to look at that. You know what I mean? And you got to take it serious, and you got to, you know, and that's the problem with people in general. You know, it's like some stuff they just sweep under the rug, and some stuff they stand on forever. You know, and it seemed like I would have heard this everywhere. You know what I mean? This should have blew up. This should have really been to the forefront of what's going on, you know, by you being a white rapper coming into, you know, the demographics of hip-hop, which we run. You know what I mean? So somebody should have been put him to the test. I mean, you know, he was under Dre and them at the end. They, you know, it seemed like they knew. I'm sure they knew, you know, who spoke to him about it or who said something to him about it. But the line should have been pressed harder on that issue.
Well, I think that his apology was enough for those who worked with him. There's a Detroit rapper named Royce the 5'9".
Yeah.
He's black.
Right.
He's actually on stage with Eminem many times after this incident. And he is obviously forgiving Eminem. So I think that the apology and being a sincere apology, I guess it does go a certain way, you know.
Well, let me ask you this. Did he have to apologize to the main public and, you know, Royce 5'9" and all his close buddies that he hung out with knew, you know, he said this word or they allowed him to say the word? See, I don't know the background on it. You never know. They might have allowed him. They might have felt so comfortable with him that they felt like he was cool like that. I don't know.
No, Royce the 5'9" is definitely comfortable with Eminem using the word. But when this came to the forefront, I think Eminem maybe has reevaluated his use of the word. Because he doesn't say it anymore.
Right.
You know?
But I mean, he had to, once he got bigger, he had to give that apology to the, you know, like I say, to the main public. But in his eyes, he might have wasn't doing nothing wrong because his peers allowed him to do it, you know. And that's where it should have got checked at if it was going to get checked with your peers, you know.
Well, that's a Detroit thing then. Detroit, I don't really know the ins and outs of how they handled it in
Right,
Detroit.
right.
But I did hear a brother come on Clubhouse that was from Detroit, and he said, look, we know all about Eminem's history, but look, the brother atoned for it already. He apologized to us, and it was good enough for us.
Yeah.
He said it should be good enough for y'all. And then this one dude said, well, it ain't good enough for the whole world.
Right.
That's y'all, But how far will an apology go for you? For example, if you had to go to the feds. You were sentenced to a decade. Would an apology from the people responsible or the person responsible for that, would that make any change for you?
Hell no. Wouldn't do nothing for me.
Wow.
Wouldn't even want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would be disappointed at you doing it. You know what I mean? Because as far as you went to do this, man, it ain't no apology that could be accepted. So
it's been 20 plus years.
Yeah, it don't matter. You know what I mean? You gotta understand that, people gotta be held accountable for their actions one way or another. You know what I mean? I was held accountable for mine because I was dealing drugs, So at the end of the day, I did have to apologize to my kids, and I'm hoping something, and they didn't just take it at first, like, they didn't want to accept it. Like, look, man, you left us out here. So, you know what I mean? My situation to my kids was different from somebody doing, what they did in order to get me where I was at. So, apology would never be accepted.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
I will come back to you with that question maybe in 10 years and see if you still feel the same way.
Okay.
Because as time goes on, I think we do change. But I understand 100% how you feel about that. But apparently Eminem apologized and all is good now. So,
right.
Let's get into our first topic, man. And I really liked our conversation last week we had about the no-knock warrant, because you gave us some perspective on what it's really like when the police come to your door, when they knock on your door and they're coming to take you away.
Man, it's crazy, man, because everything is going through your head. And especially, if you robbed a bank recently or you did something, recently, then you kind of know what they might be here for. But if you out doing dirt all over, you don't know which angle they coming from. So you really, really want to know, what are they here for? You know what I mean? Because you instantly thinking, what charge am I, is it robbery? Is it murder? Is it, you know what I mean? What am I being charged with? So it's definitely something that, if you haven't been through, man, it's a wild ride.
Now, is it true that when the police are actually physically knocking on your door, you already know that's the police because of the way they hit the door?
Man, let me tell you something. I was in there knocked out sleep. I had just got home at 5 a.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. And maybe about 6, you know what I mean? The way they knocked on that door, it was no doubt that this was the police. No doubt. You know what I mean? And you, in your mind, that's the police. No one else knocks like that, so yeah, man, it's something surprising.
Okay, well, Amir Locke was recently killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota because of a no-knock warrant, and right now the police officer that killed him, let's put his name out there. His name is Mark Hanneman, and according to the Minneapolis Police Department, they're saying he violated Minneapolis police policy by shooting and killing him once they did the no-knock warrant. Now, I don't really know the specifics of it, but they have an attorney. The family has an attorney. Amir Locke's family has an attorney. Of course, it is the legendary Ben Crump, who is known for taking on, I think he was on the Breonna Taylor case a couple years ago. So it looks like the Ben Crump is going to sue the city of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department, and he's going to also name police officer Mark Hanneman for the shooting. Although I don't really know any specifics, Ben Crump is calling for the termination of Mark Hanneman.
Yeah, they also they called him for the termination, but his mom, while she was, I believe her name was Karen Wells. She was in her eulogy, she was stating that she want to ban no-knock raids, ban them all together, so hopefully they can get that done. Hopefully they can get this officer fired, but they have to do something, because if they don't, then guess what? The next no-knock raid, what's going to stop the next officer from shooting the next guy, and all they have to do is see a gun or say, guy probably didn't even reach for his gun or nothing, because when you do that no-knock, the door fly open so fast, even if it was an intruder, You know, it's hard to recuperate while you sleep. You know, jump up while you sleep and grab your gun and point it and do what you got to do. You know, so these are trained law enforcement. You know, you guys will know what you're doing. You guys will know what you're up against. Once these guys, and this is happening across the country, and until Ben Crump and other attorneys start not just the lawsuits, but getting these dudes locked up, you know, charges filed against these guys, it's going to keep happening.
Well, to Ben Crump's defense, he's a civil rights attorney. In order for charges to come against Officer Mark Henneman, it would have to be the county where the city of Minneapolis is at. They have to decide that this guy did something that was so egregious that we're going to file charges. Or if they don't, then the federal government can come in and try to try to file a charge, either a murder or a manslaughter charge against Mark Henneman.
Right.
At this point, it's up in the air.
I believe they'll make some progress on it, you know, and sometimes it take time. Of course, they got to do the investigation. You know, they got to talk to their big wigs. You know, what kind of officer was this? Did he have any prior incidents that's on his record that we don't know as a public? You know, so I think all those factors going to take into consideration, because at the end of the day, you know, like you say, the attorneys is pushing for the body cams of each officer that was involved. You know, they want to see exactly what happened, to see if your story exactly matching what you said. And if they can obtain them recordings, then they can look at it. And if it's one discrepancy in there, that could be the first way of getting him out of there, you know, as an officer.
Well, the county is Hennepin County, where the city of Minneapolis is at. Officer Henneman is on administrative leave, and according to Ben Crump, he does have a history of violating people's civil rights. We don't know the specifics of that just yet, but it's not looking good for Officer Mark Henneman. And I thought that initially it would probably be a legal shooting, because the dude had a gun.
Right.
And what are you gonna do as a cop when you see somebody with a gun? Cops shoot automatically. They don't really try to figure it out. They see a gun. To me, they're so scared. As soon as they see a gun, they start shooting.
That's not in all instances, you know, because how many of these serial killers, these white serial killers, you know, and that's what it is. They kill a whole 16 people and they walk them into the police officer station like it's nothing. It seemed like a whole bunch of these dudes is doing these mass murders. They sure can't catch them with an AR-15 and walk them into the police station. You know, why aren't our people, you know, afforded the same deal?
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I'm surprised and shocked at some of the people they take into custody without incident.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Hey, when your skin is not white, they say it ain't right. So I think it all boils down to our skin color, man.
No doubt.
There's a bias that cops have, and I believe they're trained like that. You know, they're trained to react a certain way to people of color, and it's supported within the law. I mean, they can shoot you. I mean, I'm still not over them shooting and killing Tamir Rice, who was the 12-year-old kid that was in the park with a toy gun. He had a toy gun, and then the person that called 911 said, oh, he's playing with a toy gun. So it wasn't like they didn't know. And as soon as he came, if you look at this video, as soon as the cops pull up, within 10 seconds, they jumped out and shot him. They didn't
try to do no investigation. They didn't try to talk him down. They didn't try to, you know, and he definitely wasn't pointing and aiming it at him. You know what I mean? So that was some BS right there, man.
Yeah, they just got a call, but they knew he had a toy gun. At least they were warned he had a toy gun. So I'm still not over the Tamir Rice. And those cops, to this day, I don't think anything has ever happened to those cops at all. So let's see if we get some justice for Amir Locke. If that shooting was truly a violation of his civil rights, because I don't want to just say it was, because there's a lot of information we don't have.
Right.
We haven't seen the body cam footage. I'm sure the cop is going to say that he pointed it at him.
Of course.
And of course that'll be his justification for shooting. And who knows? Maybe I know if someone's busting in the door and I got my gun, by instinct, I'm aiming.
So
right?
I mean, that could be true, but at the same time, the body cams will tell it all.
Yeah.
And the body cams need to match the police report.
Okay. Lastly, before we move on to the next topic, I just found this tweet by Ben Crump, the attorney that's suing. He's suing the family. He says here that the officer Mark Henneman, who killed Amir Locke, has a history of violating people's civil rights. In 2020, he illegally searched a man who wasn't the target of a warrant and he was never disciplined, the unconstitutional actions of the Minneapolis Police Department is disturbing. And he has a little video along with this tweet. So obviously Ben Crump is on the case. He is researching everything about this cop, and he already found something that he did in 2020 that is a violation of the rights of whoever this unidentified person is.
I think he's going to find out more. And the thing about it is what they may do is just fire this guy just to get him. Okay, he's fired, leave it alone. But Ben Crump not going to stop with that. You know what I mean? He's going to turn over every stone he can over there, and he's going to get to the bottom of something. So from what I hear about the guy, he's really thorough.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna fire him, because if they fire him, that admits guilt by the city, and that makes them even more liable for whatever payment they're gonna have to pay out to the family of Amir Locke. So sometimes these departments will ride with the guy. They'll ride with him. They'll put him behind the desk, but they're not going to terminate him just yet. But we'll see. We'll see. It's still early in the investigation, right. And we'll keep y'all up to date on the case for Amir Locke. But let's move on to this other case, man, because this is really interesting, man. These two brothers from right here in LA, from not too far from where we're at right now. Mark Lamont Powell, 21 years old, and Kai McGee, 18, were sentenced to 140 months in federal prison for this brazen daytime robbery they did in Beverly Hills, where I don't know if you saw the video of it, but there's like some grainy video of them running.
I've seen it, yeah.
Apparently they put a gun to the head of a dude, took his $500,000 watch. They got into a little scuffle. Somebody bust. A woman got hit. And they got away, but eventually they got caught, and they were just sentenced to 144 months. What do you think is going on through the minds of these two guys? These guys were much younger than you were,
no doubt,
when you got popped. You were already like 30, right?
Yeah, I was 31.
You was 31. 21-year-old and an 18-year-old, they're on their way to do almost a little bit more time than you were sentenced to.
No doubt. Well, the thing about it, they probably was first worried about the lady getting shot. Once they found out that was a factor, then that takes the, robbery to a different level. Now, the thing about it, by them only getting 12 years, it could be said that, or they could have argued that during the scuffle for the gun, because, they also left the gun at the scene in the scuffle. During the scuffle of the gun could have went off, and that's when they shot the lady, and that's not intentional. You know what I mean? And they probably told the guy, that was losing his watch, that probably was a dumb move. You could have lost your life. You know what I mean? The watch is much more than your life. But that probably was their first instinct. Once they probably figured out that, okay, the gun allegation or the shooting, the woman allegations wasn't going to stick. Now we dealing with a robbery. You're dealing with a robbery which still only carry 3, 5, 6, 7 years on a robbery by itself. The gun is going to be an automatic 60 months in the feds. So that's how they do it. A lot of people don't know, if you walk in the bank with a note, 3 to 5 years.
Without a gun?
Without a gun, no doubt. 3 to 5 years. It's the gun that's going to give you the 60 months. And depending if you don't really have a record, you're going to get the 60 months for the gun. You're going to get the 3, 4 years for the actual robbery. And then you're going to come with 8, 9, 10 years, to the feds. And so that's why. But my thing is this. How did it go federal?
That is a great question. I don't know why it went federal.
This is a robbery in Beverly Hills at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how did they get to the feds?
That is a great question. We'll have to come back to that. But back to what you were saying about all the years that they're getting, because I was just looking at all of the things that these two got. Well, there's a third defendant in this case too that just pled guilty but hasn't been sentenced. But I'm looking at all the things that these guys did to get 12 years, and then I'm thinking about your case where you got sentenced to 10 for just 4.5
right.
Not even 4.5 ounces. I think it weighed out to
98.8 grams.
98 grams. These guys did so much more than what you did, but they're only getting 2 more years. Does the numbers make sense to you?
The numbers make sense to me because I was in the feds with a lot of bank robbers and guys that rob stuff, So that's how I was able to talk to them. I didn't have gun allegations on mine, but I do know the gun in most cases that's gonna be a separate 60 months. Now you're dealing with your case. That's how the feds do it. The state, they're gonna rack up charges on all kind of stuff and give you all kind of enhancement. The feds are gonna go by their guidelines. 60 months for the gun. What do we have now? Now you still dealing with criminal history because it's a chart. And the chart is you got the offense level going down, you have criminal history going across. So when you come down and connect those dots to what your criminal history is, these guys might have didn't have an extensive criminal history, because that usually what push you up. They probably didn't have any priors. That usually push you up. So therefore, they probably met in the middle. 12 was a good deal. I think 12 was a good deal for them.
Yeah, for being 18 years old and 21, they probably had very limited criminal history.
Limited criminal history. But on the flip side, though, by them being young, they might wind up at a USP or a FCI, and that's where all the rocking and rolling is going.
So let's talk about the difference between a USP and an FCI. One is higher than the other, right?
Yeah, the USP, the United States Penitentiary, is on a higher level than the FCI. And you got a lot of lifers over there. I mean, you have lifers at both of them, but you got to have a lot of lifers, and they work on a point system. So say if you have a super criminal history, and they changed the point system right before I came home to make it to where the younger you are, the higher the level you go. So, them guys land on a USP, I mean, definitely they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's, and they ain't going to have nothing faulty about their background as far as their street credibility, And the Crips going to see to that as soon as they get there, Who they know, as soon as they already know about them, so as soon as they get there, they going to, check their background, make sure they paperwork straight, because you can't live there if your paperwork not straight. Yeah.
Now, what's the chances that these two guys, Malik Powell and Kai McGee, will get sent to a federal camp?
I slim and none.
Why is that?
For one, they too young. They got a gang. They have a gun crime. They have a felony that requires the violence. So the violence is gonna kick them up. The age is gonna kick them up. There's so many factors gonna kick them up. I'm guarantee you they start no less than an FCI.
Okay, and that's one level below USP.
Yeah, and they could land there, and it's rocking and rolling there too. So you're gonna get the same. You're gonna get treated the same. You're gonna have to be on your gangster shit, because from what I hear, they're gang members. So once you touch there, you're gonna get hit up as soon as you come out the door. And you're gonna have to be on your shit to walk them yards.
Yeah, according to the report here, they are Harlem 30s Crip, allegedly. And for that, as soon as they let's say they go to is this like the state where you go to a federal prison for reception and then get sent to where you're going?
No, they gonna go straight to the yard from either MDC. They ain't from Los Angeles, so they gonna go from MDC or San Bernardino. They got a holdover in San Bernardino. Sometime after you get sentenced, they'll send you out there until you get ready to get shipped to the yard. But I mean, this the feds. They can get shipped across the country. They can go to Lewisburg, they can go to Leavenworth, they can go to, there's so many places that they can land, and and that's a whole different dynamic. You know what I mean? You land up in Marion, you land up in some of these spots where California ain't as thick as the other boys. It's a whole lot of dynamics you're going to have to roll with. You know what I mean? So, they in for a ride. They in for a ride. But they sound like they some young. If they jumping out doing robberies like that, they gonna make it. They some young tough little cats.
They ready for this, huh?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
if these two guys could have called you up before they were getting shipped to the feds, right after they pled guilty, what advice would you give these two guys? One being 18, the other being 21.
You know what? I wouldn't, because the only advice would be like, man, your background straight. Long as your background straight, they be all right. You know what I mean? Because like I say, when they get there, if they Crips, the Crips gonna embrace them and make sure they straight. You know what I mean? And make sure they got anything they need when they pull up. You know what I mean? And so it's not much advice I can do. Just keep your nose clean. Ain't no stealing, no shit. Ain't no. You're gonna be held accountable. When you in there's nowhere to go. Like out here, how dudes can come to the neighborhood, shoot up the town, then go back to San Bernardino or something, and they didn't cause all this chaos out here. You can't do that in there. You're going to have to be held accountable for what you come out your mouth, what you say, and what you do.
Now, I was reading the comment about the question you asked earlier about why is it a Fed case. Someone said they don't know why it's a Fed case, but this one person said, I'd rather do 12 years in the feds than 12 years in the state. How do you feel about that?
Not if you on that USP. It all depends where you at. If you at a low or a camp, of course, no doubt, anybody would.
Yeah.
But it ain't no cakewalk at the PN or at the FCIs, man. I'm talking about it's a headache every day. Especially if you're doing Cali time, because you got so many. See, it's like some people say doing Fed time is better doing it out of state, and because California is together, opposed when you come home, because we opened Victorville 2 yard back in 2005. So when we opened the yard, we had to set all the politics from scratch. I mean, where you sit, who sit where, you know. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Who's selling up with who. And the thing about it, all the boys, when they open up a new prison in California, that's the guys that's on the East Coast and the Midwest. That's their opportunity to get back home, see their families. You know, if new prison open, it's easier to make a move. So they put their bid in with their case managers and stuff to get back to California. But the only thing about it, when we get back to California, guess what we do? We get deep, and then that's when the separation comes. You know, when we out of town, it's California. Crips, Bloods, Bay, you know what I mean? We together, you know what I mean? But when you come back home to Cali, now you got all the Cali politics, you know what I mean? And that's a whole different monster within itself.
Now, you said that you wouldn't really give much advice to these youngsters that are going to the feds, but at some point, they're going to be 2 years into their sentence, 3 years into their sentence, 5 years, then they're going to be short to the house. Aren't there certain things you got to do to get ready to come home, and you should be hitting those marks as you go along?
Depending on what yard you on. Because, see, they young, they may never make it to a low. You know, I had the opportunity to make it to a low. But,
okay, so would you recommend someone, hey, you're going to get sent to the FCI or USP, but you want to get to a low.
You want to try to keep some good conduct, you know, or not get caught doing stuff, not get caught smoking or gambling or whatever it is you do, and so you can eventually get to the low. And then that's when you can do your time, because you got to think, they give you numbers, man. You finna do off that 12, you finna do 10 years, finna do a decade. You damn sure don't want to do it at the USP or at the FCI if you can help it, because it's really no step down. You know, it's no step down to get ready to come home. You rocking and rolling until you leave out those joints. You know, you gang banging or you doing whatever you're doing until them gates open, because there's no step down. And what it's supposed to be is, after you do so much of your time and your points drop and stuff like that, you make it to a low, and then that's when you can focus on coming home. That's when you can start, you know, trying to see make sure you got all your driver license, you know, your social security card, you know, just trying to you can start thinking about coming home. As long as you at the pen of the FCI, man, you thinking about making sure we straight on this yard, or if a ride gonna go up, or, you know, what's going on this yard right now. You're not even focused on the house at this moment, you know. And I know a lot of guys, you know, at the pens and at the Fs, they don't even tell the dude when they going home, you know. And they live every day like they been living it, you know, until they time come. But like I said, if they are fortunate enough to make it down to a low, then you can focus on a little more on getting home.
But that's up to you whether you make it to a low, right?
It's up. Well, it's just they got gun violence. See, for me, I was able to make it down to the low because when they changed the point system and made it that the younger you are, the higher level they wanted you to be. My violence went past 15 years because I had a robbery on my record. It was 15 years old, so that points dropped. I turned 36, those points dropped. I took a certain amount of classes. I got some points knocked off for that. So stuff that, like, the stars lined up for me, you know. And then my case manager, even when my points did drop to go to a low, my case manager, before he was a case manager, was the gang police at the prison. So he knew me from taking me to the hole and this type of stuff, you know, for gang activity. So when he became my case manager, I'm like, shit. You know, I thought he called me, he said, look, that was my job then. This is my job now. I said, well, check this out, man. I got low points, man. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get to the low. You know what he told me, Alex? You ain't ready for that. You know, straight up. And I had the numbers to get there, but he knew me. You know, I'm still sweating people about their paperwork. Dudes, you know, homies coming and, you know, rolling up hot dudes off the yard and, you know what I mean, getting separate teas and, you know, because I'm living, you know, I'm living this life, you know. So when I finally made it to the low, I was like, this what they was talking about. You know, just a difference, you know. So they're definitely going to go, like I say, they're young and they got violence on their case. They got a gun on their case. They may never make it to a low, and they just go have to ride their bid out, you know.
Okay, I want to ask you about, because you keep on talking about age. Age is very important in the federal system in terms of where you're going. These guys are very young.
Very young.
21 and 18. Why, the first part of this question is, why is age important in terms of where the feds are going to place you? And do you agree that age should be used as a factor?
Well, when I first went when I hit the yard in 05, it wasn't, you know, that wasn't the criteria. They changed that criteria while I was in there, and I see why. Because the older we get, the more mature we get. The more time you do on these yards, these USP yards and these FCI yards, the more you realize that a lot of this is some bullshit. When you trying to sit in here and make you a cheesecake, or you trying to make you some shrimp fried rice because the homie done stole some shrimp from the kitchen, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden the homie running in the unit saying such and such just got stabbed. You got to put your rice down, man, and go put your life on the line. So after you do that for so many years, you a little more wiser about the decisions you make. Them young dudes coming in there, oh man, they fresh off the street, they hot, they know everything, they gang banging, they, you know what I mean, they want to fight, they want to be a part of, you know what I mean, get themselves in a situation that they don't know how serious it is in here. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to never agree with nothing the federal government is doing, as far as the prison system, but I can see why they put the youngsters up a little higher, and not to mention you gonna get checked as soon as you get where you're going. I don't care who you are. When you hit that yard, you could be one of the baddest dudes, but there's some bad dudes there, So I believe that's why they did it,
Now, you mentioned when you were on the yard, you was checking people's paperwork. You was sweating all the dudes that was hot. When Malik Powell and Kai McGee, let's say they get sent to a USP, are they going to have to show their paperwork? Are they going to check all of that?
Oh, no doubt. And see now they trying to make it that much harder for people to get paperwork. As you know, Pacer don't give you what they used to, but they'll have somebody on the streets check it. Plus, it may be some wherever they from, whatever set they from, they may have some homeboys there. And that's when I say their background need to be straight, because, make sure they don't have nothing else that happened in the hood that was super faulty, that the G homies that they run into, they cool with. It's a lot of dynamic factors, but yeah, they gonna, no doubt, definitely, you can't live here, and that's going to be a Crip issue. You know what I mean? That's going to be an issue that the Crips handle. If some allegedly, if they from Harlem, if some of them there, they gonna be on the front lines pushing it. You know what I mean? And yeah, you gonna have to. It's Mando.
Now let's just say they get to a USP and there's no one on that yard that is from Harlem, and there's no one on that yard that's a West Side Crip. Could a Crip from another set also check their paperwork?
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
It's Crip business. You know what I mean? He could be from anywhere. If he pushing that line like that, he's going to push it. And at the USP and the LCIs, they definitely going to push it. I mean, push it hard, too. So they'll figure out a way. I used to have people send it to, my wife had got a separate P.O. box, man. She, well, what are you doing in there? You know what I mean? And we stayed on it. We stayed on it. We can't let them slip through the cracks, because that make us look bad as a whole. You got a hot homie running around the yard. Now, it's the difference when you get to the low. It's the total opposite, because this is where the rats live at. You know what I mean? The rats and some pedophiles, and this is where they send some of the mayors and, politicians too. So when he told me that I wasn't ready to go to a low, dude, you just ran a dude off the yard, dude, and he told us you did it. You know what I mean? So how's you ready to go to the low where they actually live at? And that's where the discipline comes in at. You know what I mean? If you want to go to a low, some dudes don't even want to go down there. But if you ever get your points down and you want to go to the low, it's going to be rats down there. Now what it is, though, it's a whole bunch of other solid dudes. And y'all just got to, y'all click up and you can fuck with who that's solid. You know what I mean? And you going about your business, but FCI and the pen, they ain't having it.
So the low is sort of like what the state of California has, what's called an integrated yard now.
Exactly.
They got rats, rapists, but then they got people that's trying to come home. And they solid, but they coming down to a 2 yard or a 1 yard.
Exactly.
So in the feds, the low is kind of a mixed bag of people.
But like I said, I done ran into some of the solidest dudes in the world at the low, because they did 30 years. You know what I mean? And trying to get home. Trying to just make it home. They trying to file paperwork. The bullshit, they done did that for 20 years already. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of dudes that just couldn't get to a low. The way they points was set up, or their crimes was set up, their criminal history was set up, they would never have low points. You know what I mean? So it's just a variation of what it is.
Okay. Give me some last remarks before we move on to the next subject regarding these two youngsters. And I mean, there's some youngsters that are about to go to either USP or FCI.
Well, that's the thing about it. They're going to do a decade off that 12, and they young, man. They do it. They can do it.
Now, is there any way that they can do less than a decade, like with a program? Because I remember with your case, your co-defendant also supposed to do the exact same time as you did, right, but he got a year off because of a program.
Yeah, they had what they call the RDAP program. It's basically a drug program. And what they do for the drug program is they give you a year off. You take this 9-month class and they knock you off a year, you know. But you have to go in there and say, I had a marijuana problem, I had a severe drinking problem, you know, stuff like that. Because I had violence on my record, I wasn't able to take that class and get that year off. But I do know a lot of homies that took it. It's a very tedious class, I heard, you know, but I didn't have the opportunity to take it. So
are there programs, because these guys, this is not a drug case?
No, but if somebody told them before when they first got in there, man, say you use drugs, you might can get the RDAP, but you talking 9 years from now. You know what I mean? Some other laws could have came down the pipeline, but that's really the only program that they had, and you still only getting a year off, you know.
Hey, any
right.
If I can get a year off of 10, that's just 9 now. But man, these guys are definitely gonna have to do probably 10 years for sure, minimum.
No doubt. They, like I said, they gonna do it. They young, but it's just the thing about it is, and this is what I say about a lot of guys. I hate to see these guys get this kind of time and they never did 2 or 3 years before. You know what I mean? Because some of these dudes can do 2 or 3 years and be like, hold on, let me reevaluate the shit I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just be honest with you. You know, so sometimes when some of these guys just get knocked in the head, they first case, Alex, they getting 10, 15, 20 years on their first real case. You know what I mean? And some of them might have been to the pen for 16 months, but I'm talking about when you do that 4 or 5 years somewhere, you kind of start thinking a little different. So I guarantee these guys, after they finish with this decade, you know, I think their perspective gonna change a lot. You know.
Now, did you go to a USP or a FCI when you first went?
I went to a FCI. I went to Victorville, and we opened Victorville, and like I say, Victorville 2, and we had to set up all the politics. You know what I mean? And it was a little hectic. You know what I mean? But hey, you know, it was what it was. You know, I was at the forefront of making sure, you know, when the homies came in, they had stuff they needed. But at the same time, we used to take a package, and all the homies would put a item in this package. So when the homie pull up, we got a big ass bag full of, you know, stuff people need. But before I used to hand them that bag, Alex, I look them in their eyes and, man, your paperwork right, homie? You know what I mean? And some dudes will just be like, I'm cool on the bag, you know what I mean? But now you got me, you know, on the second investigation, you know what I mean? But it's that serious, you know what I mean? It's that serious, you know. So, but like I say, if your background straight, you'll be fine. As long as you ain't on no rat, you'll be cool.
Yeah, that seems to be like the number one issue, right, for people that are doing the time.
Man, I mean, it's a lot of people out there. Alex took a lot of time. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I said before, when I got 10, I felt like I beat them. You know, when I hit the yard, you know what I mean? They, FG, what they do with you? So I beat them, homie. Oh, you got the dime? You know what I mean? That's how they felt.
That's crazy.
And you run into dudes that, like you say, had life sentences, you know what I mean, that they didn't even just talk to you until they warmed up to you and, you know, saw that you were kind of person you were. But it was, man, dude was doing a lot of time, man.
So
you
yeah,
know.
let's we know this 18-year-old dude ain't never done no serious time.
Right, he's just too young. Yeah,
it's possible that Malik Powell may have done, you know, 16 months before. He's young, but not too young to where he hasn't been to prison before.
Right. He definitely could have been.
Do you feel that, because you had a couple of stints in state prison before you went to the feds, did that prepare you or help you understand what it was going to be like for you for the next 8.5 years?
No, because I didn't do long enough. You know what I mean? By the time I got in there, and you know, and I went in 1920. By the time I get in there and banged it out with the homies, it was time to come home. You know, so I that's where I say, if you haven't did that 4 or 5, you know, sometime even that 3, but really like that 4 or 5 mark, if you didn't do that kind of time yet, those 2s and 18 months and 16 months, that ain't gonna do nothing for you. You know what I mean? To be honest, to be just total honest with you. So they not prepared for the, I mean, I ain't gonna say they not prepared, but it's a whole different mental challenge, you know, because I don't know if these guys are robbing somebody because their mom was on dialysis and they needed to do something to feed the family. You don't know if they was robbing somebody because their little sister was trying to get a kidney transplant, or, you know, you don't know what the background issue is or what these guys are really trying to get some money for. But now you done took yourself off the street, so you can't help your family if that's what you was trying to do. Maybe you was trying to, you know, do something really that's that was really like for real in your life, you know, and now you can't do it at all because you're going to be going away a long time, you know. And then I think the heavier toll is what condition is your family in when you leave, you know, and is mom gonna make it till I get home, and if is grandpop's gonna make it till I get home, you know, and that's some of the factors that you factor in when you're doing that kind of time, you know. So like I say, physically these dudes is young. I think they can go do a decade standing on their head, but it's the other factors in their life. Will they have somebody to come visit them or send them money, or, you know, it's a lot of other factors involved that'll make their time, you know, harder or a little easier than what it could be, you know.
Now, when you were in Victorville, that was kind of good for you because you could have family come visit you and travel shorter distances.
Exactly.
Let's say they sent you to Marion. What would life be different if they sent you to a federal penitentiary across the country?
Well, they sent me to Latuna, Texas. It wasn't Marion, it wasn't Illinois, it wasn't Leavenworth, it wasn't Kansas, it wasn't Lewisburg and Pennsylvania, but it was still a plane ride, you know. And then your family have to prepare for that. You know, you had to prepare for that. And luckily, I had money, you know what I mean? And but all that money you saved up from selling drugs, you know, after 10 years, you know, when you come home, unless you had some millions put up, you know what I mean? You know, it's depleted because you're still trying to take care of your kids. You're still trying to give them a Christmas or whatever, you know, birthdays and stuff like that, you know? So, but what about the guy that don't have it like that? You know, he just out of town, no luck, you know, got to work the prison jobs to try to take care of himself, maybe try to start hustling in the pen, you know, to try to make something move, you know what I mean, was the stealing food out the kitchen or, you know, selling it or whatever you got to do, you know, hustlers going to make it happen, you know, when it comes to the survival, you know. But it's definitely a toll, you know, on your family, because I didn't get to see my kids that time when I, you know, the time that I was in Texas. It's just luckily they opened up a new prison in Fresno called Mendota. And like I say, every time they open up a prison in California, that's your best way to get home. Because everybody hate to open up new prisons. So it's really so tedious, but that's your only way to get back home. So I was able to get right back. I was only in Texas probably about 13 months, and I was able to come back home. But I didn't see my kids that whole 13 months because, you know, to ship them out there and hotels and rental cars and, you know, that sort of thing. That's a toll on the family, man.
Do you think there's any is it done deliberately to send some people further away from where they consider home, or is it just the way the system works in terms of placing you in different penitentiaries?
Well, yeah, it's a drop of the hat. You can request your judge to ask you to be staying in California. That don't always work. And then don't get me wrong, some dudes really like going out of state and doing their time because you do better time because there's less politics than in California. Like I say, when you at home and California prisons, oh man, it's a headache every day. Somebody because there's so many homies, you know what I mean? So many Crips, so many Bloods, so many power rules, so many, you know. So it's so many issues, you know what I mean? But when you, like I say, you go out of town, it's California, you know. So the time a little easier. Yeah, it might be harder on your family, but you the one ultimately got to do this time.
All right, man. I could talk to you about this topic for a whole another 30 minutes. But let's move on to the Snoop Dogg situation because about a week and a half ago, it was reported that Snoop Dogg now owns Death Row Records. Mm-hmm. And I was doing a little research on it, and it looks like he owns the brand, but not the music, not the catalog, not the Tupac songs, not his songs, not Dre's songs.
Oh, okay. I thought he bought it all.
Make sure you put that mic right in front of you. Well, he definitely didn't buy it all, but I think that's the goal. I think that's the plan. That's the goal. What do you think of Snoop Dogg on this venture to, I guess, fully acquire Death Row Records?
Well, I mean, if he owned the brand, he definitely can do what he want to do over there as far as music and merchandise and all that sort of thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first heard about it, I was cool with that. I was like, man, that's what's up. Why not? I mean, he helped build the brand from scratch. You know what I mean? So why not Snoop? Why not Dre? Why not the West Coast? You know what I mean? So I was all for it, just to be honest with you. I'd rather see him. I mean, who else? I mean, if you be honest with you, him or Pac, and Pac gone. You know what I mean? Dre got his own dynamic, you know, aftermath, you know what I mean? Who else, man? You know what I mean? So I kind of smiled when I heard that he did that. You know, that's what's up.
Well, according to Variety magazine, they say that terms of the transaction were not disclosed, but Snoop's acquisition of the Death Row brand is the first part of a transaction that is expected to see him also acquire some of the label's music rights. Some of the label's music rights in the future. So that right there pretty much tells you that it's the name, it's the brand. He now can put Death Row on a shirt and sell it, or put some new artists out and make money off of it. Or as you were showing me, there's a beer now with the Death Row label on it. But in terms of the catalog, he does not have that yet.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, Alex. I think it's rappers out there fighting, not even just rappers, artists, period, out there fighting for Snoop to sign him. I really think, without his old catalog, without the catalog, I think he can turn this into like a major record label. You know what I mean? I mean, and I think he will. I mean, everybody want to come rap for Snoop, be on his label. They feel he a fair dude. You know what I mean? So I got it blowing up. I got it really, to be honest with you. I mean, Dre is not putting out music like that no more. So, man, I think he might become one of the biggest record labels around, to be honest with you.
Well, the first thing he's got to do if he wants to do this with music, he's got to find some talent. He needs to find some artists.
Yeah, but
that's the hardest thing to do.
But they don't have to be artists from scratch. You could take a platinum selling artist right now that's not signed to another label and sign him. And take flight from there. Mozzie just signed with who was that, Yo Gotti or somebody?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And before that, Snoop might have grabbed it. If Snoop had this, Snoop might, hey Mozzie, come on Death Row. You know what I mean? Mozzie a platinum selling guy. So it don't have to be a from scratch artist. Even though I know that's probably one of the goals. You know what I mean? For somebody to be like Snoop, his first record label. And take flight from there, but he don't have to get new talent in order to make that label successful.
Well, yeah, I hope that he does sign some artists. I want to see Death Row Records try to reach the pinnacle that it did in the 1990s when they had Pac, Snoop, Dre, and then there was a lot of other artists that they didn't really push as hard, like Lady of Rage, OFTB.
Yeah, you had Eastwood over there. You had Crooked Eye over there. You had some guys over there. You had Danny Boy and all them over there. And like you say, everybody wasn't pushed like that.
Now, you told a story on your YouTube channel recently of trying to get some of the homies from the neighborhood over there and see if they can, get a little something popping over there.
No doubt.
Whatever happened with those guys?
Well, Infrared has his own. He's out there. His music is on all platforms. Big Tup, his music is on all platforms, but he's, Tup not rapping like he used to. He not putting out, music like he used to. And then Too Swift, he just got back home. Too Swift is in the studio actually right now. Too Swift just sent me a song the other day, man. He's still hard, you know what I mean? And but at the same time, the guys started to get up in age. The window for opportunity is only, they want these young guys now, But Infrared, which is DJ Quick's nephew, he's doing this thing, man. He's touring. He's doing good.
But you were trying to push them back in the 90s, right? Before.
Oh, no doubt. I took them up to Death Row. They did a nice couple hits for Suge, man. And I told the story about how I took them up there and we got to the studio and Hutch was producing something. So Suge say, I'm gonna put the beat on. They got 30 minutes to write their verse. And I was like, damn. I don't know if they can do, to myself, I'm like, damn, I don't know if they can get that done like that. Man, they handled that, man. You know what I mean? And Suge loved the song, and we went on to one of his family members' birthday party. He said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to slide it in between a couple Death Row hits and see, if the crowd still stayed bumping it. Man, they played that song. It was people dancing on chairs, man. I'm talking about it was a hit. And it just, we never got a chance. And when we sit down in the office and Suge asked me what did I want, like I said, at the time I wasn't a manager, I wasn't really in the music game. I just wanted the little homies to be, and a bunch of come to him, pull up on me, hey FG, let me get them. You know what I mean, man? You got too much stuff you doing. You got the club, you doing this and that. Let me get them. I take care of them. You know what I mean? But I want to just make sure like I told Suge at the desk, man, I just wanted to make sure the little homies get and these is Paru homies. It's no reason they shouldn't at least get a shot on your label if they got the talent. That's my whole thing. I'm not just because they homies. No, these dudes had the talent. You know what I mean? So, but it was a lot going on at the time. Like you said, they had platinum selling artists, and it was on the back end of the Death Row era. So, I like I told Suge, I want that song of you, man. I don't know. I know you got to put up somewhere because it was never published or nothing. So he got it somewhere, man.
Well, I don't know if you ever been able to get that music.
Right.
He's in the middle of serving 27 years now.
Yeah, he a little tied up.
Yeah, he's tied up right now. Yeah. Was these homies a group or were they separate solo artists?
Well, the thing about it, I took him down there as not so much as a group. Cause say if he would have liked one and didn't like the other two, or say if he would have liked two and not made like the other one, homie, I brought y'all up here. Y'all got y'all shot. This who he wanted, you know. But the other homie will feature you when he get a chance. Or put you on a song with him so you can get some exposure. And, you know, that was the conversation that was had. You know, everybody might not make it, but eventually you can get on a song with the dude and get you a little exposure and keep on pushing from your angle. You know what I mean? So
all three of them are still doing their thing.
All of them still rapping. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Maybe they can still get on death row now.
Well, you know, Infrared and Snoop is tight. Super tight to the point to where Infrared opened up for Snoop on plenty of occasions. You know what I mean? He and Snoop videos, and so Infrared may just get a shot over there. You know, so if you ever hear the name Infrared, you know that's the homie from Treetop. And he's a good little homie, man.
Okay, I was always thinking about this purchase in the context of Harry O because it's believed and I believe that he was very instrumental in the success of Death Row in the early years, even though he was in prison at the time.
Right.
He's free now.
Yeah, no, Harry O out on the street doing his thing. He a businessman, always been one. So it don't surprise me that Harry O making moves, you know. I don't know exactly what he got going, but I know Harry O is he definitely gonna make some moves. That's just in his nature.
Now he got sentenced. He was doing time in the state, but then he went straight to the feds. During the time when I think you were in the feds. Did you guys ever cross paths?
No, I didn't cross Harry O. I ran across the homies. Man, I was up there with Harry O, or I was here and there. And people would be surprised how small that federal community is from coast to coast. You know, like I say, you can't hide, you can't get away. People are going to know where you at. You know what I mean? So it's more or less like when people hit the yard, you finna get all of whoever was at that last yard, you know. So, but I had a few homies that ran into Harry O.
Now, about a year or two ago, the Death Row catalog was sold it was sold as a part of a $600 million deal, which is owned by Hasbro.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here. It says here, according to a report, LA-based label Death Row Records, which is owned by Hasbro, may be sold as part of a sale of the label's umbrella company, Entertainment One. Now, this was over a year ago, and this deal was a $600 million deal.
Dang.
So I know Snoop got money, but I don't know how much money he got for that, you know?
Right. But from what my understanding was they bought a block of companies, you know, and the company they really wanted came with all the rest of these companies attached to it. So they start offloading some of the other companies, and to me it seemed like it was inevitable that they was going to do the same with Death Row. Yeah,
definitely. Death Row, in this deal, Death Row was a part of other companies, but I don't know how. Well, actually, it says here, the Death Row part may be worth $18 million, but it's real complicated. But the whole Hasbro, the Hasbro purchase $4 billion, $4 billion.
Yeah.
So I don't know the fate of the music catalog. I'm sure Snoop just wants to just give me the music, just give me those albums.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm sure he won, and he probably eventually get them. It's probably just a process that they got to go through.
Now, and my thinking, since Harry O came home, I'm thinking Harry O was hollering at Snoop saying, "Let's do this." Like I feel like he's the man behind the scenes that's trying to make all this happen. But in all these articles, there's no Harry O mention.
Yeah.
there's none of that mention. But I just got a feeling that Harry O maybe have his hand in this.
You know what? It's possible, but I don't want to speculate.
Yeah.
You know, but it's possible, and you'll know. You know, soon enough we'll know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey man, let's wrap up episode number 2, Streets and Scholars. I want to let everyone know that we are available on your favorite podcast platform. We're on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, and wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And we'll also take questions. If you have a question you want to send in that you want FG or myself to answer, you can just hit us up. I'm at Alex Alonso 101 at all social media platforms. And FG, you're on Instagram at FGeneral1.
No doubt.
FGeneral1 on Instagram. Hit us up. And that wraps up episode number 2. And we'll be dropping new episodes every Thursday. So please keep on the lookout.